Welcome to the Wellness Experience, where we'll give you some thought-provoking insight on all things health and wellness. And as always, backed by data, research, and some good old life experiences. We're your hosts, Jonathan Imperial and
Ebony Young, and we're going to jump right in today, Jonathan.
Let's do it.
Did you know that 1 in 5 New Yorkers experience mental illness in a given year?
I did not know that.
Yes. This is backed by research. Today, we want to explore why there is an epidemic of loneliness and isolation happening in our city. Quite sad, but true.
Yeah.
And at the end of our episodes, like all of our episodes, we'll finish with a few minutes of mindful meditation.
Here we go.
All right. So we're going to continue with some of those stats and data, Jonathan. 1 in 5 New Yorkers experience mental illness in a given year. Hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers are not connected to care. Connection to mental health differs significantly, listen to this, by neighborhood in New York City. And this information is coming from our mental health New York City websites. Those in more affluent neighborhoods receive immediate care when triggered or disturbed, leaving issues like depression or anxiety no room to escalate to more serious psychiatric problems versus those living in our most vulnerable areas in New York City.
Wow.
It is devastating, and we're going to talk about that a little
crazy.
bit more and a little later with you, audience, and we would love to hear from you. More than half of New Yorkers, that's half, you guys, out of the 9 million?
9 million people
that's
living here.
4.5 roughly, report feeling lonely at least some of the time.
And those of you out there, raise your hand if you are, right?
I'm telling you,
Nobody sees you.
How absurd is this? Like, it's totally absurd. We live around millions of people in this overwhelmingly large city, and people are struggling, Jonathan. Our audience listeners, if you're struggling, write that down in that journal today. I am struggling. Don't know what's wrong. Don't know where it's coming from, but I'm struggling, and I'm suffering in silence. Many people are. You're not out there by yourself. Interesting news. We're going to dissect this a little
And so hopefully
later.
we'll be here today to help you figure some things out. So I'm going to give you some more stats. So when we explore the depth of this issue, there are many factors that play a role in this increasingly detrimental problem. The social determinants of health are busy lifestyles, unconscious or remote living, greed and gain, right?
Yes.
Self-absorption
Problem.
and an increasing ability to not stay focused on any one given thing, creating an intentional ADHD society.
That's right.
I can attest to that, which causes us to stay in a hyper mode, not thinking at all.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
just living remote, day after day, night after night, and we wonder, what is wrong with us? Why do I feel this way? Which calls us to right now, today, we've been gifted with an opportunity to explore the depths of why this exists and how we can begin to find solutions to this virus that plagues our society.
It's a virus.
So before we continue, how about we sort of ground this in a little bit more research? So I've pulled up here the CDC website on loneliness and isolation. So let me give you what their definition is. They say that loneliness is the feeling of being alone, regardless of the amount of social contact. But that's regardless of the amount of social contact. Because a lot of times you think that loneliness is that you don't have a lot of people around you. So you could have a lot of people around you, but you still feel lonely. So
Listen, you can have a lot of people around you and still feel lonely.
And I actually know a lot of people like that. And what's interesting, because we live in New York City, there's so many people. I often hear people say that you can be in a really crowded city and still feel lonely.
Wow.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that.
It's dangerous.
And we'll kind of unpack that a little bit more. But here's another definition. Social isolation is a lack of social connections. Social isolation can lead to loneliness in some people, while others can feel lonely without being socially isolated.
Wow. Those are deep definitions, guys. I encourage you to take a look at this on the website, under the CDC website, and really think about that.
Give you one more thing.
I would love to hear it.
So, one more thing. Immigrants and LGBT people
are
at higher risk.
Whoa. And how many immigrants do we have living in Queens?
A lot.
And how many LGBTQIA people we have living in Queens? Somebody to the front, back, right, or left of you is experiencing these issues in silence a lot of times, which is detrimental to the slippery slope of jumping out of windows. And I'm going there. I know that's deep, right? But you never know. I have experienced this personally. I have seen a body on the ground with someone jumping out of a window. Absolutely. And that was here in New York City, going from the 34th floor right down to the ground because there were things that they just couldn't deal with, right? And the neighbors, the job, no one had a clue that this person was even struggling. And this is serious. It's real. It's something that we need to touch. So, Jonathan, I think we're a bit skilled in various areas of well-being. And so what we want to do with the audience today is we want to walk us through a journey to offer options and ideas to curate how you fix it for yourself, right? This is not a prescribed show. We are not prescribers. We are not doctors. So we encourage you to check things on your own, to write down information on your own and find it. We are just here to help give options, to create that platform like our borough president would so lovely like us to do, for people to think about things and to heal and to be along with people on their wellness journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to reinforce that we are not therapists, right? We are not licensed, but we are just like you. We are trying to be informed. And from our experiences and from our research, from our education, we want to share those with you. So I got a question for you.
Okay. So, however, Jonathan, I do want to start. I am a life coach, so that gives me some.
Okay, so she's got some credibility. She's like, okay, hold up. I am credible. All right, so she is a life coach.
Okay.
But we are not licensed therapists.
We are not licensed therapists.
But here we go. So I got a question for Ebony as well as for the rest of you.
Okay.
And Joe.
And Joe. Hey, Joe, the producer.
Yeah, Joe back there. Holla.
Holla.
So we know the issues, and we can do research that assists us in defining them very well, right? So we gave you some of those research.
Totally.
What do the practices and methods look like to curating our healing and finding peace? That's one. And then, how do we encourage our Queens residents, because we are in Queens, to take the first steps?
So, Jonathan, when I think about curating practices and methods, so that comes to the actionable pieces of defeating loneliness, which you define very well, and isolation, and the varying differies between the both. It was.
I actually didn't know those definitions.
It was. So the one that you can be around people and still feel like I'm alone, right?
That's loneliness, right?
That's hard, right? And then, isolating, just not having any type of social connection. That's exactly right. I would have to break the practices and methods down in maybe, 4 categories. How do we look at the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual part of the person to call to them the mindfulness that they need in order to start the journey of disconnecting to isolation and loneliness? And so let's start with the mental part of this first.
Okay.
And I'm going to answer this question for myself. Have we ever, and I'm going to say we, audience, come with me here. Have we ever been intentional about going into the therapist or into a mental health organization to get a psychological assessment?
Nope, not me. Have you?
A psychological, that doesn't mean that, you've gotten all the way to, in some way, shape, or form, needing medication, which is fine because some of us need that in order to balance out. But just randomly setting yourself up an appointment to say, I want a psychological assessment on me.
Yep, I should.
So that I'm preventative.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful, but I haven't.
I haven't done it either, Jonathan. And I wonder what I would learn about myself if I were to get the psychological assessment and see the data on myself, so that it would help inform me along my wellness journey. So if I know these things about my psychological health, we go to the physical health doctor annually and get our, if you're a woman, you go to the OBGYN.
Right.
If you are, if your skin breaks out, you go to the dermatologist.
Yeah, well, I think these are just some things that we are all sort of familiar with doing, and it's sort of part of our lives. But then going to a therapist is like, whoa, what? Are you crazy?
And we gotta mention this here, right? So the breakdown of brown and black people in this whole therapy thing, it's a stigma.
Yep.
That if you go to the therapist or you go to the psychologist or if you go to the psychiatrist, you're crazy.
You crazy.
And that cray is not it, okay? Because what you are doing for yourself as a person of color is setting yourself up for so much success, because many people of color have been through the ringer in America. And sometimes we are subliminally unaware to what the trauma that we've been through the trauma, everyday trauma, things that are subliminal and we don't even pick up. So going into our therapist, into the psychiatrist, and demanding an annual psychological assessment could change our lives.
How much does that cost?
You know, I am not sure. We can get that information for you. I think that is great. But right now, let me just put these nuggets out there. Our borough president, Donovan Richards, has partnered with BetterHelp. And this partnership includes a $2 million gift to the people of Queens.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. And what it entitles you to is 3 sessions of mental health therapy with a licensed therapist.
Wow.
And guess what? You can do with that licensed therapist in number 1 of your 3 sessions. I'd like a psychological assessment.
That's awesome. I think that's such a good resource for people to have, especially it's free.
It's free.
Because I was just going to say, I mean, who can afford therapy? I mean, it's pretty expensive.
It's expensive, you know, and a little bit later on in the show, we'll talk about some free options that could potentially help people. But right now, I would encourage folks to look at that. Like when you're looking at the practices and methods of coming out of loneliness and isolation, go get yourself a psychological assessment, mental health.
So what about the first step? So we were talking about how do we get people first started. So we talked about addressing your mental health, but what else can people do? So you don't have a gym. What else do you do?
So, you know, I would say your emotional health, right? Let's think about your emotional health a bit. And let's think about, when you think about your emotional health, emotions can go up and down. They can vary, right? Based on circumstance, based on situation, based on life experiences, based on. So what we want to get to in life in some way, let's not ignore our human self.
Okay.
Emotions have to go. We're human. They're going to go up and down. But how do you in some way get to a place where your emotions can go up and down, but you fall back on something stable? What could that mean for yourself? Hey, you know, you may be a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Christian, a whatever. You may be nothing. You may be entitled to a book that you use as a life guide. I actually think your emotional health needs to fall back on something stable in your life that helps you to stabilize your moral and values moving forward. So for me, that's the Bible, right? For me, I've got something to kind of assess myself up against or measure myself up against or fall back on. You may be an atheist, right? And you may have a book that you use as a guide to your life that always calls you back to your morals and your ethics and your values and things that matter to you, that when you get into these emotional frenzies, right, you say, okay, that's it. I need a stability. Let me find something that I can always, that I believe in, that I can fall back on, that I can say, oh, that's helpful for me. It calls me back to stability in some way.
That's awesome, because that is a good way, an easy way, because I'm all about free and cheap, so I'm here looking out for you, all right? So I think one of the other ways, I think she had a really great suggestion. I think another way is just using the internet and just researching the things that are out there. So you guys landed on this podcast, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the wellness nuggets that we're giving you. But there's other places out there that you can be informed and get things on the cheap. And I think another thing is just walk. I mean, put some shoes on. Okay, if you don't have shoes, put some chanclas on. But go outside and walk. Depending on the weather. Depending on how safe your neighborhood is.
I love that.
To be safe.
That's right.
But you can go out there and just burn some calories.
I love that.
And make sure that you are moving, get some sort of movement in. I think that's a really easy way
Go deeper.
to work on your mental health.
Go deeper with that physical health piece of it. So we talked about the mental components to maybe stabilizing and finding strategies of practices and methods to get yourself out of isolation and loneliness. We talked about some of the emotional opportunities, the internet, something of stableness in your life. And now you're exploring this physical piece. Dive a little bit deeper into that. Like, should there be, Jonathan, a routine? Should we have, how do you start with these endorphins moving in your body, these chemical things that help you to be a better person?
Yeah, definitely. I think there should be some sort of routine, but let's back up a little bit. I think a lot of people can't even get there. I think it's just finding that motivation to just get themselves off that couch.
Wow.
Put the remote down.
Wow.
Get your butt off. Can I say butt on here? Yeah,
yes, you can.
And get your butt up off the couch.
I
think that's just one of the things. I mean, I've been doing it for a while, and if you've listened to our first episode, you'll know that I love going to the gym, but that's just me.
Yes.
But if you don't, I mean, I know it's hard for a lot of people just to get up and move.
Yeah.
So I think it's starting from square one.
Okay.
Find your inner motivation. What is your motivation?
I think because I work out too, Jonathan, maybe 4 or 5 times a week, and it's important to me, and I know what it does for my endorphins. If I'm looking at my self as a health seeker, like before I can't even remember before I started working out, but if I'm trying to put myself into the shoes of that person, I might need an encourager or somebody to come along with me in this journey just to help me to stay motivated. Because I'm not sure if I wasn't working out intrinsically, if I would make the time. I look at my day. There is no way. We're home at 9 and 10 sometimes at night, 11 at night.
You got to schedule this
and we go to the gym, right? But if you haven't been used to that routine, how do you then motivate yourself to stay in it and sustain it? It's not easy.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things is really thinking about why I'm doing it, right? So again, in a previous episode, we'll link it. You'll know that one of the reasons I'm motivated to do this is because there are some family members that aren't as healthy.
Yes.
And I do not want to be in a wheelchair.
Yes.
I don't want to have diabetes.
That's right.
I don't want to have a cane. So I want to try to live my best life. I want to travel. I want to do things. So that's what motivates me. So I think about my long-term goals. And for me, it's to be healthier, but okay, I'm gonna little vanity here, right?
Yeah.
In the LGBT community,
yes,
you gotta look good. So gotta work on that six-pack.
That's the Black community too.
And you gotta work on that booty. And then you kind of think about some short-term goals, like my sister's getting married soon. Holla.
Yeah. Holla.
And so it's going to be at a beach resort, so I want to get my body ready for that. So just thinking of things that can help motivate you, because otherwise, what's going to get you off the couch?
So like milestones, like hey, this is coming up. Let me practice on reaching this goal. I love that, guys. Think about that. What do you have in your life right now that's up and coming? Do you have a graduation coming up for your kids, or, is there a function at, your spiritual place of connecting that's coming up that you want to look good for? You have to stand in front of an audience. Is there a family reunion coming up, or a class reunion that you want to get ready for?
Exactly. Yeah. So just put those goals in place and then get yourself motivated. So we got another question?
Yeah. So we're going to sum that up. Question of practices and methods. We talked about the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health, and some of the practices and methods that you can take in order to get better. Okay, so
I love what you mentioned about the BetterHelp. So guys, if you want to get free therapy, BP Richards is offering free mental health therapy from BetterHelp. So check it out.
Amazing. So Jonathan, how can you call yourself to the onset of loneliness or depression before it sets deep within the soul? What are the warning signs, and how can we recognize them? Where do our constituents go when loneliness sets in?
Whoa, that's deep.
It is deep because it's a process, right? And sometimes we don't even know that we are there until we are like at rock bottom there.
Right.
Which is what I just talked about earlier with somebody jumping out of a window. You don't want to get there, right? And so typically when you get to that place, you know, but I would like to suggest to people that they have an ongoing therapist, a preventative therapist, whether that is monthly, quarterly, even when you're feeling mentally well and on your complete four cylinders, I would suggest that when you have a therapist, your therapist can give you feedback of when you're going down a slope. Like maybe with the things that you bring up to them, maybe with how you're reacting to things or situations. They can say, oh, this doesn't sound good. Or, are there other things happening in your life that are causing this? And they can potentially call you to that. So one of my solutions to that is have an ongoing therapist, somebody that you're always talking to, so that they can pick up the signs before you even pick up the signs.
That's
How about
good.
you? What are your thoughts?
I mean, for me, again, I'm going to go on the cheap here.
Okay, it's
I mean,
okay.
You may
That's
not
right.
necessarily have some money to go get a therapist because
That's
you might be
right.
saving that money to go to a club, go get
Okay.
some new shoes.
Woo-woo.
No, I'm just kidding. But if you don't have money to do a therapist, and I think it's a really good idea, I'm not diminishing that. But I think even simpler than that is talking to somebody. And I know part of being socially isolated is that you don't have the other people to reach out to. But even look at your Instagram or look at some of your social media spaces and see how you can connect there.
Wow.
Just try to maybe join a volunteer group. Try to get out of your comfort zone and just try to meet other people. What is the quote as the greatest fear?
Love that.
Is trying to eliminate fear. What is that quote there?
Fear itself. What?
It's fear itself. The greatest fear is fear itself. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of times we're so used to our comfort zone. Yeah. So if you try to break out of that comfort zone and try to meet other people.
Wow. So, it's interesting. Sometimes when you find yourself really highly stressed out, these things come into play. Like, for instance, I work a lot, right? And sometimes I'm on the binge of workaholicism, which isn't good. And I have Jonathan sometimes to call me back to, hey, did you go to the gym? Yeah. Or, hey, maybe you should.
Did you eat?
No, totally. And maybe you should go to the spa and just relax. Get yourself a massage, which some of these things that he would like bring to call back to myself, which I already know, but when I'm in the midst of stress, like stressing myself out, I'm not aware.
Yep.
I'm not aware. So having the friend, having the therapist, having somebody to call you, and while we're on the spa thing, I'm going to suggest, body work is out there. It's all kinds of variations of pricing and fees. Go get yourself a massage. Move your muscles around. Do something that would sometimes call back to memory your reconnection to people. Yeah. Your reconnection to yourself, right? Like, hey, how many times do we go through 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of not being with friends?
A lot, especially here in New York City. I mean, that whole thing about being in a city that has a lot of people, but a lot of times you don't necessarily get to see your friends or connect with people just because you are working and you're just sort of in the zone. But I think let's talk about some vulnerable populations. Earlier I mentioned immigrants and the LGBT community, but also seniors and stay-at-home moms. You think about it, right? Deep. The seniors, especially if you've got some sort of ailment that prevents you from leaving your home, or a stay-at-home mom, right? You're there, you're the caregiver, even if you're not a mom, but you're just like this housewife.
No adult interconnectivity.
There's no interaction. And my mom didn't go through that, but I know she had some friends that weren't as connected to other people. And I could definitely see that even from a young age.
And it starts very small, like, with little things like you being anxious or triggered. Like, watch yourself how you interact maybe with the people in your house, like maybe your partner or your kids, right? Are you snippy?
Yeah.
Are you pumping out? Like, why am I this way? What's wrong with me? Why am I? Just call yourself back to something is off balance.
Right.
Something.
And that's why we like to do this practice of meditation.
Absolutely.
Really making sure that you guys are understanding how to be self-aware.
Yep.
And even if it's just taking a little bit of time to just breathe, really allowing yourself to breathe and understand your breath. So again, back to the seniors, and because I'm a little concerned about our seniors and our stay-at-home wives and mothers. What can they do to prevent this social isolation?
Seniors, stay-at-home moms, the LGBTQIA community, our immigrants, some of our most vulnerable people are in the stages of unrecognized trauma, right? Sometimes it's unrecognized trauma. There's a couple places we can go. I'm going to encourage people on the call today to check out NYC Well. Check out that website.
That's the city website, right?
That's a city website, right? NYC Well. Project Hope, which I really like, which is a state website that gives people the option or opportunity to join a group.
Yeah, and I think these are all free, everybody. So
those are free.
Free. You know, I love
free. Oh, me too. Right, but they are free. Project Hope gives you the opportunity to join a group. It gives you the opportunity to speak to someone one-on-one, and so does NYC Well. It's a process that you have to take, but it is free. And once again, our borough president, Donovan Richards, has offered the partnership through Better Health for you to have a licensed therapist one-on-one for 3 sessions, which I think is quite amazing. And so these are some preventative strategies. If you're not at the state of prevention and you are in it, right? I'm in the middle, I'm going down, I'm sliding downhill, call.
Yeah, I think those
Talk
are
to
really,
somebody.
really good strategies. And you know, it's interesting. I was scrolling through social media. Yes, I was looking through TikTok, right? You're looking for some dances.
We do it.
But I also noticed on there, because I was preparing for the show, and I saw that there was a lot of hashtags for social isolation and loneliness.
Wow.
So, you know, if a majority of youth are on there and they're the ones that are posting hashtag social isolation and loneliness, what the heck is going on?
You just did something, Jonathan. You just called to the table something that a lot of us are ignoring. A lot of our teens
are reaching out. They're
are reaching out. And that is a lot of times because they have this handy dandy tool of a phone and an iPad that they are constantly on, which is leading them to a lot of depression and social isolation. You know, you guys, I'm a little bit nervous about what's the studies that are going to come out in the next 10 years of our youth, which is my kids, Generation Z, who have gotten this tool and have only turned to it for pleasure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can do everything on your
pleasure.
phone. I think I read a study where people can actually live in their home without conversing or coming into contact with anybody. And you can do all of the different services just in your home because you've got access to the internet and you can get things delivered. You can just do whatever.
That my friends that are listening in, it's scary. And I'm concerned about the psychological makeup of people and being disconnected from feeling, touching, being with, being near, being in groups of people. And, you know, some call that the old-fashioned way. I really think it feeds our mental health in a good way. Find some friends. Go out for a drink. Go out bowling. Give me some other thing. Go out. Take a spa day.
And if you're using social media, I mean, use it in a way where you're trying to connect with people that have like situations.
Totally.
And that way you can talk through whatever issues that you might have with them. Outside of that, for those of you that are still in school, maybe try to join some groups. Adults, join some volunteer groups. Again, try to get over that fear. I was that person where I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to meet these new people just because I'm scared of getting into these new circles.
Yeah.
But trust me, you'll be much better for it.
Wow. You'll be much better for it. And I think that leads us right into us here in the Borough of Queens, finding a way to practice and pilot healthy isolation. And let me explain what that is. So we're going to be piloting a walk away from the city of Queens opportunity, right? And that is going to Cold Springs and just hiking, taking some of our Queens residents who have had a hard time post-COVID, right? In the small business field, in education, in our lounge and restaurant bar categories that have really had a hard time. And what we want to do is surround them with some unconditional love, right? And as a part of that unconditional love is testing some opportunities to retreat, to take them out of Queens, to go to Cold Springs on the Bull Hill and do some hiking and reflection. And we're going to come back at you to let you know what happened.
Yeah, but you can try some of that on your own. Again, the guy who likes to do things on the cheap.
Love.
I mean, think about your neighborhood. Even if you're not here in New York City, I'm sure there's a park near you. Gather some friends, meet a new friend, and explore and just kind of do something different than what you would normally do. Think about the route that you take to work or to school. Do something different. Maybe take a different street, maybe go to a different restaurant, maybe go to a different coffee shop.
Great idea.
And just try to evoke something new and different in your life.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think we can prompt this with like helping people to just step outside of themselves, right? And part of struggle is, trying something new, right?
Yep.
Just try something new. It might feel like a struggle, but it's actually helping you to curate opportunities to heal.
Right.
Because it's healing.
Which is a good segue into we want to help you even further. So we're going to give you some little nuggets, some gifts, if you will, because it is holiday time. So what's one solution or a gift, if you will, to leave our audience about wellness or even just about the topic that we talked about today?
Yeah, so these are nuggets and gifts, right? If I had to sum up anything in this discussion around isolation and well-being, I would say take a deeper dive into connecting with something bigger than you in a deeper way that can help call you back to your center. Because whenever you get off-centered is when we go down these rabbit holes of divisive, just unhealthy strategies for ourselves, and it could really end up in a really dark and bad place for us. Find someone that will call you back to your center.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. For me, I'm going to go back to this whole idea of gratitudes and doing that every day. And a lot of times people will be negative throughout their day, and one thing can spiral into another thing. So for example, you wake up, you stub your toe on the side of the bed, you're like, ouch. So you're gonna be in this mood the entire day. If you don't get over it, you're gonna be that way for the next few days. And if you don't get over that, you're gonna create sort of this portrait of who you are, which is this bitter, nasty person. So how do you get over that? Gratitude, give thanks, even just for the littlest things in life.
Love that.
Give thanks. So a lot of times people only do that when they're at Thanksgiving table going, oh, I've got to give thanks. But what are you grateful for today?
Love that.
Right? And if you really can't think of anything, say, I am grateful for being alive. Because guess what? There's a lot of people who can't be here today.
Absolutely.
And you are here and alive. So make the most of it. So gratitudes every day.
Whew. Make the most of it. We got to go to commercial break.
Hi, I'm Susan Sammy Lash. I'm the director here at Copel Auto Group. Here at Copel, we have the Copel Cares Initiative. We care for our employees, we care for our customers, and of course, we care for the community. So you know what? Come in and be cared for. We're here.
So we hope you enjoyed our conversation and got some nuggets of information about our conversation about loneliness and social isolation. We're going to finish today's episode off like we normally would with a little bit of meditation. So you ready? I'm going to get you into position.
Let's go.
Close your eyes. Don't peek. Sit up tall. You can either lay down on the ground or sit up in your chair. Right? If you're sitting in a chair, sit up tall. Everyone's eyes should be closed. Mouth open, shoulders down. So remember, if you weren't with us in a previous episode, meditation is about awareness. So we are trying to block out what other thoughts are in our minds. So again, eyes closed, sitting up tall, belly button pulled in, lengthen your spine. So imagine a long line extending from the bottom of your spine all the way up to the top of the head, really lengthening your body. Now do a quick scan of your body, relaxing your toes, your legs, lower back, relaxing the upper back. We're at the shoulders, dropping them down, relaxing. We're moving into the arms, making sure those are loose. The fingertips, you can wiggle those around and just relax. Coming up to the neck, lengthen your neck and your spine. The mouth should be open. The eyes soft. Now, let's breathe. Inhale through the nose. Hold it. Exhale. And I want you to be really intentional about your breath, right? So getting rid of all the negative energy, and then you're inhaling a lot of positive energy. So we're going to do that a few times, inhaling through the nose and exhale. All right, so just breathe. A little bit of quiet time here, but I want you to notice your breath, not judging it, but being aware of it. All right, Ebony's going to take us a little bit deeper here.
And it's a quote today for you to think about, for you to take with you. The whole secret of a successful life is to find out what is your destiny and purpose, and then do it. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Last breath in and out. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And remember, in order to follow your guiding star, own your experience to create your outcomes. See you on the next episode. Peace.